Relentless perseverance without results is often looked upon negatively. The person who fails thousands of times, not knowing if success is even possible, might seem foolish to an outsider. Combine that with the goal being inside a video game, and it's easy to think that the time would be better spent almost anywhere else. I argue that achieving something not for the inherent value of the action itself, but for pushing the boundaries of what is possible and inspiring others to accomplish their own feats is uniquely and beautifully human. In the original Halo, there was an infamous challenge proposed in the early days of the game. The goal, simple on the surface, was to launch Master Chief from one tower to another, alive, on the eponymous level Halo. It was swiftly deemed impossible by the community and remained that way for many, many years. This is the story of Tower to Tower, arguably the greatest trick in gaming. First, a bit of background. As you'd expect, most people played Halo casually and linearly. You shoot the Covenant, complete the campaign, and play co-op with friends when they come over. A select few, however, realizing the flexibility and freedom that Bungie's in-house physics engine provided, quickly made Halo their playground. Enter highimpacthalo.org. High Impact Halo launched on April 6, 2004 by Duquesne, a pillar in the community, was the premier site for sharing Halo trick videos. Keep in mind, this was before Reddit or even YouTube existed. This was the #1 place to find other Halo trick enthusiasts. Pioneers like Dark Helmet and Frog Blast had already been sharing videos of themselves, launching long distances with warthogs, getting into areas typically out of bounds by players, and High Impact Halo provided a central repository for the community to share and discuss these kinds of feats. High Impact Halo members often liked to propose challenges or difficult tricks that they had thought of to the community. There was a sticky thread where approved challenges were posted, and people would attempt them in a quest for glory, recognition, or just personal satisfaction. On September 10th, 2004, member Grenade Sticker did just that. He posted in a thread and proposed a seemingly straightforward challenge for the community to mull over, and thus Tower to Tower was born. The plan was simple: perform a launch from the top of one Bluebeam tower to another, a significant distance away, in the Halo campaign level, without dying or sliding off. The idea was that a Warthog jump, a well-known trick at this point, could be used on top of the first tower to launch Master Chief onto the second tower far in the distance. While impressive, these first attempts at T2T barely even got halfway. The challenge was quickly deemed absurd and impossible by Grenade Sticker himself, and from the footage, that's a reasonable conclusion to draw. There are a lot of challenges here to get into, but first, a bit of background on Warthog jumps. You're probably wondering why the Warthog doesn't explode, or why the player doesn't die in these launches. In the first Halo, vehicles are indestructible, so by placing the Warthog between the player and an explosion, the Warthog can transfer all of the momentum to the player, launching them without killing them. The first problem for Tower to Tower is the huge number of grenades required to do a launch that can cover the distance needed. On the ground, this is straightforward, but time-consuming. You gather the grenades, die in the same spot, and perform the launch. On top of a tower, this is significantly more demanding. As we can see from the initial attempts, there wasn't nearly enough firepower. To complicate this further, there are a limited number of grenades on the level, so you have to systematically kill all the enemies and NPC characters and pick up their grenades. As if that wasn't hard enough, getting the right number of grenades is also only possible on Legendary difficulty. Master Chief is only able to carry 4 frag grenades at a time. You've probably guessed it, this will take a massive number of trips. Gather the grenades, launch to the top of the tower, and die. Repeat this again and again and again. Setups alone took 10 to 20 hours. Fortunately, in Halo 1, it is possible to have Player 2 travel across the map to trigger a checkpoint, so that all your work won't be lost. If you accidentally trigger another checkpoint, however, or turn off your Xbox, you're done. Time to start all over. The next thorn that players quickly ran into is a mechanic called the fall timer. This became the biggest challenge in Tower to Tower. In Halo, the fall timer is pretty simple. Fall for too long, around 3 to 4 seconds, and you instantly die. The timer starts as soon as Master Chief has a negative vertical velocity. Here's a highly detailed diagram that shows this. So, not only is there a huge horizontal distance that must be covered, but going too high will trigger the fall timer and automatically kill the player. Go too low, and you'll undershoot the target. Land on it perfectly, you'll slide off or die on impact. All this, of course, assumes you could even get there. And at this point, no one could even come close to the other tower. This is where Blue Devil came in. On October 15th, 2005, Blue Devil released an inspirational video showing his T2T attempts. After completing the grueling setup, Blue Devil quickly tried the old-school Dark Helmet style launches that Grenade Sticker and WLT had been using. It just didn't provide the distance needed. In his testing though, he found something amazing. Exiting the Warthog turret at just the right moment seemed to provide a huge speed boost, launching Master Chief incredible distances. The fact that he was able to land a dead body on the target tower breathed new life into T2T, and many people began attempting it. Despite the great progress in 2005, there wasn't much success over the next few years. Time went on. During 2008 and 2009, progress was mainly driven by a player named Lone Starr. Lone Starr was one of the first people to actually document the steps needed to perform a T2T launch. Remember that problem about sliding off the tower with too much speed? Well, collisions with a flat surface do not cause damage in Halo 1, as there was never an occasion in the game where high horizontal velocities would be attained so as to lead to the death of the player due to running into a wall. To take advantage of this, Lone Starr was one of the first to suggest putting a Warthog on the second tower to act as a net to catch the player. Lone Starr continued to drive progress, even hooking up his Xbox to a power generator so that it wouldn't turn off. And in 2010, he created a post inspiring the community to get the T2T trick done. In early 2011, Lone Starr's optimism caught the attention of two Halo 2 players who had never tried tricking in Halo 1 before this, Mr. Monopoly and Doolies. Mr. Monopoly was intrigued by what Lone Starr was doing and watched him for hours, learning the ropes in order to create his own setup. He began putting in months of effort trying to complete this. losing power multiple times because of thunderstorms in Texas. He refined Lone Starr's technique in such a way that he was able to consistently get close to the second tower, and came closer than anyone had at this point to completing the trick. Mr. Monopoly came within inches, and it's hard to tell whether the fall timer or the impact killed him first. Just a month later, on February 12, 2011, Mr. Monopoly posted a video called New Setup. We can see an improvement to the setup. An additional warthog is placed to land on in an attempt to reduce the distance needed to fall and thus beat the fall timer. Impressed by Mr. Monopoly's progress, Dalex decided he was going to start attempting the challenge. He began practicing the setup on May 31st, 2011, actually joining a Skype call with Mr. Monopoly to see how to do it, and a day later, on June 1st, Dalex had 2 incredibly close attempts. Dalex was closer than anyone had ever been, dying milliseconds before hitting his net of 2 warthogs, which he stood up using a hog balancing trick to provide a better wall. The race was on. The community watched in anticipation, knowing that the trick was close to an end, but not knowing whether Mr. Monopoly or Dalex would clinch it. Dalex records this on Friday, June 3rd, 2011. Hours later, on the same day, Mr. Monopoly does this. It was clear that the trick was tantalizingly close to being completed. The community was waiting with bated breath as Mr. Monopoly and Dalex repeatedly came within inches of landing. On Saturday, June 4th, 2011, after nearly 7 years since Tower to Tower was first proposed by Grenade Sticker, Dalex did this. Just 24 hours later, Mr. Monopoly also completed the trick. At the time of this recording, it is 2021, 10 years since the trick was first completed and almost 17 years since it was first proposed. Only one person other than Mr. Monopoly and Dalex has completed it. Dragonflare was successful on April 30th, 2016. Mr. Monopoly still actively plays Halo and even holds some world records for speedrunning Halo 2. You can catch him streaming on Twitch fairly often. Dooley's, although a bit less active, also still posts Halo videos. He also has some pretty sweet drum covers. To give you an idea of how important this was to the Halo community, there was an entire article published on this, featured in Xbox World magazine in late 2011. So what makes an achievement great? In my opinion, it is perseverance and resilience in the face of an unknown outcome. It might seem silly that a trick in a video game can be somehow profound. To a lot of people, it probably seems like a giant waste of time. But I think what Tower to Tower represents is so much bigger. Everyone has their own towers in their life to get over. I hope the stories of Dooley's, Mr. Monopoly, Lone Starr, and everyone else who contributed to this feat inspires you to get out there and perform a few launches of your own, towards whatever it may be. Thanks for watching.